Welcome, everyone, to the YouTube exclusive version of the PFF Fantasy Podcast. I'm John Macri, and today we are continuing to get you good folks ready for the start of the 2024 fantasy football season by diving into Sleeper's ADP in order to devise the perfect Superflex draft strategy from picks range 10 to 12 in a 12-team league. We previously did this about a month ago, covering pick range 1 to 3, and there was an interest from you guys to do more. So I'm jumping into the other end of the spectrum of pick slots to see how we can attack drafts from that range. I've also written up the articles for every pick range for free on pff.com. But again, there's something like over a month old now. We know ADP is constantly changing as we get closer to the season. So this will be our most updated version. Now, using Sleeper's ADP as of Monday, August 12th, which is when I'm recording this. We're using full PPR scoring. We're going to hit on about 14 rounds here at a relatively brisk pace, but still enough to provide thoughts and rationale for every pick along the way. So without further ado, let's get into it, starting in the 10 to 12 spot draft hole. I put myself right in the middle there at pick 11 here. So for me, we're starting quarterback again. And I will say, it's not that I'm starting quarterback from every single round one pick in Superflex. Like the 7 to 9 range is one where I will deviate, but 10 to 12, I think, we're going to get a chance to double up here. We got a long range of picks that are going to happen between the second and third round for us. So I want to get that quarterback early. And before we get into, round 3, when a lot of them have come off the board by that point, right? So starting right away at pick 11 for this case, it's Joe Burrow. His ADP is 14th overall. So, we're technically reaching, I say in quotes, from the ADP, but not really considering, that we're drafting the best available player at the most important position in Superflex formats. And Joe Burrow, along with our next potential target, is what we're really going to aim for here. Obviously, he had the down year last year with injuries and the slow start, which was also due to injury. That's what pushes him down this far anyways. But remembering that this is also a guy that finished as QB4 overall in 2022 when he was healthy, gets T. Higgins back along with Jamar Chase. That's only going to help kind of bring up him back to that range again in 2024. Now, obviously, if someone drafting ahead of you feels the same and Burrow is gone, then this probably turns into a range where I'm not going quarterback in round 1, but will in round 2. But if that's the case where Burrow's gone and, you got a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown there, whichever of those elite wide receivers are available, that might be a case where I won't go quarterback. But if Burrow's here, I'm all in on Burrow and the bounce back and fine spending a first round pick on him in Superflex, especially if I can pair him with another potentially elite starting quarterback on the turn into the second round with Anthony Richardson as my QB2. Richardson is going 15th overall in Superflex, according to Sleeper's ADP. And this is another one to me that I feel like is a no-brainer. If Richardson can stay healthy here in year 2, which is really the only major question mark. But if he's healthy, he has elite fantasy upside. We know that. No quarterback had a higher points per dropback than Anthony Richardson, 0.73 last season. And while it was a small sample size, right? At the same time, no quarterback also delivered a higher percentage of their fantasy points as a runner last year, 52.4%. He has a case to be the top rushing threat at the position this season, and we know how much top rushing quarterbacks correlate to strong fantasy finishes, right? So you don't have to look much further than last year's top 3 quarterback finishers: Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, all top 3 in rushing fantasy production as well. And Richardson absolutely has the ability to get there in 2024. Again, if healthy. So please stay healthy, A-Rich, so this can come to fruition. Now, after we go quarterback to open our drafts, we get a bit of a breather in between our second and third picks, but luckily waiting on the skill position players should pay off when looking at this ADP and based off drafts so far, because there is still a deep talent pool to choose from, especially now that the quarterback position does start to dry up a little bit quicker. And the name that pops off the queue here is Brandon Ayuk, currently of the San Francisco 49ers. I say currently because obviously trade rumors and the like have been going on all offseason, with now apparently the more likely scenario is an extension in San Francisco. Who the hell knows what's going to happen there? But what we do know is that Brandon Ayuk is among the best wide receivers in the league. He's proven that for fantasy as well, back-to-back top 15 PPR finishes, including as wide receiver 12 last season. Of course, we're expecting Ayuk to be available for us in week 1, either with the 49ers or somewhere else, preferably the 49ers though. But again, it's a weird situation that has at least move the cost slightly down for a potential top 12 wide receiver. So if you're willing to take the risk like me, I think it'll pay off nicely here for the year. Now, as we move into round 4 and make our next pick, you'll notice that the approach for this draft spot, 10 to 12, is going to lend a little bit more zero running back heavy as far as the approach goes for a little bit, anyways, as we load up on high end options at quarterback and wide receiver. So that continues here into the 37th to 39th pick range, where I want to stack up my Anthony Richardson pick with his top receiving option, Michael Pittman Jr. Pittman is going 42nd in ADP right now, with a few tier 3 and 4 quarterbacks going ahead of him, as well as a couple other enticing options like Derrick Henry or Trey McBride, depending on how comfortable you are fading those positions a bit longer. If not, I really like those options as well. But for this build, stacking Pittman with Richardson just makes the most sense. We're getting Richardson's clear top target, who delivered a really strong 2.04 yards per route run last season and an 80.0 receiving grade. That was the best of his career and still in our prime. So he'll be our wide receiver too. I tend to love that. We get another lengthy wait here until round 5. And like I said before, the aim is going to be more zero running back approach focused. So I'd love to load up on another top wide receiver option here and give us 3 really strong options off the bat in this build. And looking at the ADP, I think it's one of the last ranges to get those options with top 12 potential. And there's 2 names that really stand out. So whoever you guys like the best, I don't think you could really go wrong here. It's between DK Metcalf going 59th or Devontae Smith going just ahead of him at 58th. I have DK Metcalf ahead in the ranks just by a bit, so that's where I'm going. But I really don't think you could go wrong with either of these picks. Both were top 20 PPR wide receivers last year, and both of them have been top 12 PPR wide receivers in the past. To get either one as our wide receiver, 3 just locks us into elite production from the wide receiver position all season long. Malik Neighbors goes just ahead of this range, as does Cooper Kupp. All those guys were gone in this mock, as well as Devontae Smith before this pick. So DK Metcalf is the guy for me. And speaking of, other great options, we have one more thing to address before moving on to the running backs and the tight ends of the world, because personally, I want to lock up my QB3 in this range. I talked about it last time we did the Superflex draft strat videos when we targeted Jaden Daniels as our QB3. Not as costly this time, but I do think it's a valuable pick in round 6, considering the format. So the guy I want in that QB3 spot for this roster, with both Burrow and Richardson being on the team to get insurance there, is Kirk Cousins, who, yes, comes with risk of his own coming off an Achilles, but you can always draft Michael Penix in one of the final rounds as well. But locking up our QB3 and leaving no holes at the most important position in Superflex formats shouldn't be understated here. If something happens to Burrow or A-Rich again, we want as little drop-off in production as possible at the position, so it doesn't kill our season, right? There are other possible options here at quarterback, like Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers. Maybe you want to wait a bit longer and go riskier with a swing on one of the other rookie quarterbacks like JJ McCarthy or Drake May. But for me, Kirk Cousins, I think, makes the most sense. He's got a great offense to work with. He's older, yes, coming off the Achilles, but doesn't rely as much on his mobility. And by all accounts, looks great this offseason. So we know we saw him last year prior to injury. He was averaging 20.3 points per game, which was a top 5 mark at the position. If we're asking for just something relatively close to that with this draft capital, I think, there's nice value to be had here, and there's obviously potential for him to deliver even better. All right, so we've started quarterback, wide receiver, quarterback again. Not an uncommon strat for those familiar with the zero running back approach, but we're not going to delay much longer in getting our potential starting running back, starting here in round 7 with James Conner. I just covered Connor in detail last week in the YouTube exclusive video going over my favorite dark horse RB1 candidates. And Connor was the long shot of the bunch, yes, but there's still a lot of reasons for optimism in him outperforming his ADP this season, which has him as RB22 and the 84th player off the board, coming off a career year in terms of rushing grade, yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles forced per attempt, total rushing yards. And now the offense gets upgraded from last season with Marvin Harrison Jr. joining the fold, plus a full season of Kyler Murray, which last time that happened, by the way, Connor ended up with 15 rushing touchdowns, which was tied for the second most at the position. So I'd feel very good about him as our RB1 without much concern for Trey Benson in his rookie season. Once we have Connor, we can double up at the position to lock up our other starting running back by grabbing Zamir White of the Las Vegas Raiders. Not the sexiest running back to plug into our starting lineup, considering we don't have a full season of work from him yet in his career. But this is what zero running back looks like a lot of the time, is taking shots on unattractive, potential volume heavy backs later on who can outperform their current value, right? And we talked about White in our breakout running backs episode a couple weeks ago. There's absolutely potential for volume here in this offense in 2024. We saw White handle 23.8 opportunities per game when Josh Jacobs was out last season, which is an unreal rate. I don't expect that role to be, that heavy again. And our first look this preseason didn't really dissuade too much from the fact that White is going to be in for a nice role this season. He handled all the early down work, came off for a few snaps in obvious passing down situations, and was back in around the goal line as well. So potentially nice fantasy usage there if that carries over to the regular season. But yeah, either way, there's room for a nice consistent production from Zamir White as our RB2. As we head into round 9, it helps our situation to add a backup plan to that running back room. And after fading the position for so long in this build, that's why I couldn't be more grateful really for the value of Raheem Mostert at the moment. So he's going as RB30 on Sleeper in Superflex formats. This was our RB2 in PPR last year. RB2, like even if we expect Devin Achane to get a boost in usage, which we do, we can devalue Mostert some from his finish last season, but this much is a lot. He's still going to be involved in the offense, potentially more around the goal line as well. He led the position in rushing touchdowns last season. He has the explosiveness to rip off long runs. We saw that last year. And yeah, he's 32 years old, which is ancient for a running back, but at the same time, he's not your typical 32-year-old running back, right? He has just 735 carries in his career, which when comparing him to other backs since his draft year in 2015, there's been 30 other running backs to exceed that many carries over that span. Most of them greatly exceeding it, with RB9 in ADP, Derrick Henry being the max version of that at over 2,100 carries, which is triple the workload of Raheem Mostert. So to me, it's a low risk cost for Mostert, considering his fantasy potential. Easy pick in this range. Okay, a few more quick hitters now as we get into round 10. We've yet to address the tight end position, which if this were a tight end premium format, we would have done so earlier, but I like the depth of the position a bit more this year than in years past. So I'm okay waiting a bit to get our tight end one, because we loaded up at quarterback and wide receiver. And Dallas Goedert is going to be the prime target in this range. We're getting, yes, the third receiving option for the Eagles, but it's a high-end offense, most importantly, right, in Philadelphia. And Goddard does have weekly top 10 potential because of that offense. This is a guy that has finished no worse than PPR tight end 13 in any of the past 3 seasons. Doesn't have the upside of like a Mark Andrews or Kyle Pitts, but he's nothing if not consistent. And with how we've attacked this draft, that's likely the most we're going to get from our tight end position. So I'm fine with consistency here, with a lot of the upside kind of spent elsewhere. Dalton Schultz, also a potential target in this range for similar production. Okay, starting roster is now full, so let's get into the early portion of how we'll attack these later rounds to fill out our bench. Starting with Courtland Sutton, another undervalued player, in my opinion, going 134th in ADP right now. I'd say probably the most disrespected team wide receiver 1 at the moment. Every other expected top receiving target outside of New England, which is a more ambiguous situation, they're all going within the top 100 in ADP. So Sutton is, in my opinion, clearly one of the best values at the position this season, going as wide receiver 49. I mean, even just last season, he finished as wide receiver 31 across 15 games. That was wide receiver 29 in points per game. And that was with Jerry Jeudy on the team, who was a more obvious target threat than what they have in Denver this year. So Bo Nix definitely has potential to be better than what he's valued as right now as well. I just think, either way, Sutton is an easy choice to lead this team in targets in 2024, get up over that 100 target range, which alone makes him more valuable than his current ADP. So make sure to take advantage of that. Coming back around on the 12 to 13 turn, I'm looking at a couple potential names to provide some more running back depth for us again. It's between Chase Brown and Blake Corum for me. Chase Brown going at 137, Corum at 138. I think there's value in both these guys. not just as high-end handcuffs on very good offenses, but I think they both have the potential to get fantasy relevant touches in 2024, even with clear starters ahead of them on the depth chart. Like Brown has already been working with the ones in Cincy along with Zach Moss, and Corum has been drafted to help spell Kyron Williams, who the team and Williams have come out to say they want to do to keep him fresher, which means that Corum's going to get a fair bit of work there, potentially around the goal line as well. So take your favorite there, provide some more potential lottery picks to that zero running back room. Okay, final couple of picks for the sake of this episode. I talked earlier about our tight end being a nice, consistent option in Dallas Goedert. So if we want something potentially more than that at the position, we could take a couple high upside swings. And in this range for me, it's between Taysom Hill and Ben Sinnott of the Washington Commanders. Hill continued to get his usual versatile usage this preseason, which was really encouraging considering now that both Sean Payton and Pete Carmichael are gone. So we got a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, coming in and just continues to utilize Hill all over the field, including at wide receiver and out of the backfield this preseason, which is great news for fantasy because that's exactly what's allowed Hill to be tight end 16 in back-to-back years. But if you want even more upside than that, rookie Ben Sinnott of the Washington Commanders could be it. This will depend on the health and availability of Zach Ertz, but Sinnott getting a larger workload should, an older Ertz coming off an ACL tear not work out. I think that's very enticing for this offense where there isn't a clear second receiving option behind Terry McLaurin. So could pay off nicely here if he gets on the field. Last pick, round 14, more depth, obviously. So we're looking at potential sleepers in this range. You got plenty of options. Main thing, though, definitely worry less about the ADP once you get this deep, really once you get outside the top 100, because if you believe in a player to emerge above expectations, don't wait on them. Just grab them, make sure nobody else gets them. There's hardly any risk for value at this point in drafts. So a couple personal favorites that stand out. Josh Downs, especially if we weren't able to get Pittman earlier to pair with Anthony Richardson. Jalen Polk mentioned, the ambiguity of the Patriots receiving core where anyone could emerge there. Polk, second round rookie, has just as good a shot as any. Josh Palmer, another one. We love the potential for Ladd McConkey as a rookie to lead this team in targets, but Palmer arguably has a strong chance as well, considering his history with Herbert and having been effective for the team in the past. And the Chargers' leading receiving role should be a lot closer in ADP right now. Palmer makes a good value because of it. You got guys like Dontavian Wicks, Jalen Wright in this range who could have high upside as well. Depending on how many rounds you have left beyond this and how comfortable you are with like Cousins as your QB3, for example, Michael Penix being a later round pick makes sense as well. But that's it, guys. That's the 14 rounds that I said we'd go to, a little bit longer than I wanted, but that'll wrap it up. I like the roster we can build from this range quite a bit, but let me know who your favorite targets are. And if you have a different strategy for this 10 to 12 pick range, I'd love to hear them. Shout them out in the comments below. You can find the full written versions of each of these draft strat articles for free on pff.com. And I'll be updating those soon with new ADP since they are a bit older now. Although a lot of similar picks and strategy from what I could tell. So if you're heading to pff.com, sure, using the code PFF 25 for 25% off your annual PFF subscription. Appreciate you all, and until next time, peace out.